Hello, I'm Janna, and welcome back to the Crafty Corner. Today is going to be all about Distress Spritz. I am absolutely in love with this brand new magical distress product. So today we're going to be diving into a variety of techniques, and then we will be making a card. If you'd like to see exactly which supplies we're going to be using, go ahead and pause here. All right, let's head over to the Crafty Corner. Today, we're going to be diving into the world of Distress Spritz. Spritz is an absolutely amazing and sparkly distress product. So let's just do a quick overview of what we have in Spritz. So we've got so far picked raspberry, worn lipstick, barn door, spiced marmalade, fossilized amber, peacock feathers, twisted citron, peeled paint and uncharted mariner, and weathered wood, wilted violet, and walnut stain. I am so excited to have these wonderful colors already available to us. They have been such a delight to play with, and they've been oh so sparkly. So today we're going to be diving into the world of Spritz and see what we can do. So the first thing I want to do is to do a little swatch. There are many different colors in the distress line, and one thing that I think is good to know is how Spritz reacts with these different things. So I have picked some wilted violet distress ink, distress oxide, crayon, watercolor pencil, oxide spray, spray stain, and distress paint. We're going to see how Spritz plays across all of these things since we have the coordinating Spritz in wilted violet. So first, let's go ahead and ink part of the tag. Just run that directly across here. There we go. And then I'm going to take a mini tool and we will do some oxide over the top. So I got a teeny tiny blending tool and let's put that down right here. There we go. All right, so that takes care of two things. Then let's go in with some of the wilted violet crayon. Let's see, can do that. We'll scribble that out. I should be able to smudge this. Yep, that is smudging quite nicely. Now, just in general, it's always fun to see all of the same colors in the same color family all laid out next to each other, because across the different mediums, these do react slightly differently and have slightly different color intensities. As you can see, the oxide is definitely the lightest, but that is to be expected. But then if you look between here and here, the crayon and the ink, the crayon is slightly redder while the ink is slightly bluer. I just find that absolutely fascinating. But when you look at it, you know this is wilted violet, without a doubt. Okay, now I'm going to scribble down some of the watercolor pencil, and then I'll go in with a water brush to move some of that color around. Okay, there we go. I think we'll do the paint next and I'll do the sprays last. All right, so now I'm going to need a water brush. There we go. Let's get all of that water moving and we'll just quickly move that around. Pretty good. All right. Now I want some of the paint. So we'll just take that. I'm just going to go right into the bottle. Now, wilted violet paint has always been a bit funky and it does tend to get chunky. I have previously alleviated that in the past using some Distress Refresher, which I find works quite well, and I'm trying to revive paint. Okay, but with a little bit of water, this moves just as expected. So let's spread that out. think I'll need to go in with the heat tool in just a moment and dry this off just a little bit, because we're getting a little bit more water on here than I was anticipating. Okay, there we go. It's a bit more translucent than I thought. Get a little bit more paint. There we go, that's better. All right, we'll be back in just a moment. I'm just going to give this a very quick dry, and then we will do the spray and spray stain. Let's go ahead and do some of the spray stain. So I'm just going to mask some of this off. You know what, I'll do the oxide first. Okay, got that. Got a quick shake. Okay, so there's the oxide. And we'll just turn this and we'll use that. That'll give me a spot to do the spray stain. Okay. All right, and again, I'll dry this off very quickly, and then we'll see about adding some spritz. All right, let's get some spritz on here. So we've got the coordinating wilted violet. As you can see, there is a sediment that builds up at the bottom, so we need to give this a good shake. Make sure that everything mixes in. There we go. Okay, so got that mixed. Now we spritz. So these bottles react a little bit differently than spray stains. They offer a nice splatter when you spray them, instead of the big whoosh that kind of comes out when using the oxides or the distress spray stains. One thing that I've been debating doing is adding some labels to these. I've still got some little circle labels from Ranger, so I was thinking, well, I got these out today, we could label the top of these as well. I'm just going to take that little sticker, put that right on here. I'm going to dab just a little bit of the spritz from here. Just tapping that onto the label. And now I've got a color labeled spritz cap. So if I'm looking at these top down, I will know exactly which color I've got. Here we go. It's kind of wiping up the little bit of overflow. There we go. All right, so let's quickly dry this off and then take a look at how spritz looks over the top of these different elements. Let's take a look at spritz over all of the mediums. So to start with, on the right-hand side, we've got distress ink, then oxide. After, we have distress crayon, distress watercolor pencil, distress paint, distress spray stain, and distress oxide spray. And I love how the wilted violet spritz coordinates with this beautifully. And over the top, it is just magical. No matter how you tilt the tag, it is super sparkly. Now, if you notice, these are carried in kind of a transparent carrier solution, but all of that lovely spritz comes in a sediment that is at the bottom of the bottle. So that is why we have to shake these really, really good before we start spraying. And that allows us to get this super cool sparkling effect on whatever project we are working on. Oh, I just can't get over how much I love the way spritz reacts over these different mediums. Definitely really good. And you can see as I tilt the tag that the color just really, really shines through. So this is going to be a great adventure playing with spritz and seeing all of the wonderful things that it can do. Next, we're going to be creating a gradient with spritz. We're going to be working on a distress mixed media tag, and we're only going to be using 3 spritz colors. This is going to include picked raspberry, fossilized amber, and peacock feathers. So we're going to be taking these 3 colors and we're going to be giving them a really good shake, and then we're going to create a gradient right across the tag. Okay, let's double check that we've given these a good shake. The sediment at the bottom is incorporated, so that means we will be able to continue and start spritzing. Now, since I have these out, I had decided that I did want to add some of the Ranger stickers so that I can label these as we go along. So as I'm spritzing, I will probably be labeling these at the same time. So let's start with that beautiful picked raspberry. I'm going to be pretty generous with the way I'm spritzing, and we've got pink at the very beginning and some at the end that hopefully is going to be blending into a beautiful purple. Next, we're going to take the fossilized amber and generously spritz here. As you can see, we're starting to get a beautiful gradient, and I'm spraying a little bit extra in order to get that transition into green. So the next color is going to be peacock feathers, and we're going to spritz that down right here. Ooh, that is looking good, and I'm already starting to see purple. That is just really, really cool. So add just a little bit more of the blue in there. I'm trying to get that green. Just a tad more of the fossilized amber. I really want to see more of a green stripe in there. All right, let's dry it off and come back. And check it out. We have a full rainbow gradient. That is absolutely amazing. So we know that we can get this effect using spray stains because stains react and they can add one color to another to make another color. But these aren't stains. These are particles. This is absolute chemistry magic to me. I wish I knew how it was done, but either way, the result is magical. We go from a beautiful, beautiful pink into an orange. There is not a trace of orange in the fossilized amber or the picked raspberry, and yet here we go. We have a super pretty orange, and then we transition over into a lovely green, and at the tail end, we end up with a lovely purple. And this was just from using fossilized amber, picked raspberry, and a dash of peacock feathers. And again, I am so thrilled with this magical result. All right, now we're going to move on to a look at some texture pastes. We have got some pre-made tags over here with some texture paste. This one, we've got some regular white matte texture paste, and we're going to be doing a little bit of spritz and dry. So for this one, we're going to be using a combination of mustard seed and peacock feathers. I thought that'd be a nice combo. And then we will spritz some lovely colors over the top. Now, I wanted to do a little comparison between working with spritz on a wet surface and spritz on a dry surface. I'll do dry surface after with the black texture paste. All right, so let's go ahead and spray first, but I want to get some water down. Okay, there we go. We've got our mustard seed, and now we want a dash of peacock feathers. Great. Let's put this on fast forward as we do some drip and dry. Okay, so now I'm going to add a bit more water, and we're going to be adding in some spritz. So again, I want to go with the fossilized amber, and I also think we're going to want a dash of twisted citron. So let's take that and we'll spritz. Okay, and a dash of twisted citron. All right. Let's go ahead and dry that off and then take a closer look at what we've got. So here are the finished results, and we've got a beautiful shimmer. See how it kind of congregates around the edges of the texture paste? That is pretty neat. We still got some lovely splotches here and there, but it really likes to work its way in and around the raised areas, which I think that's pretty cool. All right, so this would be texture paste with spritz. Now let's move on to the black texture paste, and we'll add some more spritz. This one I'm just going to do a single color, and then we'll add some spritz right over the top. Okay, so this time I want to pull in some of the weathered wood and worn lipstick. So again, give that a really good shake. Trying to make sure everything is incorporated. Now with the black is going to absolutely make the spritz pop. I am looking forward to that. Okay. Okay, now interestingly, when it's wet, it really doesn't do too much, but the magic is going to happen once we start drying this off. So before we do that, I want to give a little dash of the weathered wood. This stuff is really deceptive. When it's completely wet like this, you don't really see all of that gorgeous shimmer. And you might think that you didn't actually get any spritz on here, but I can guarantee you, you did. It's just in hiding at the moment. So let's go ahead and dry this off. Well, let's take a closer look. And there we go. There is all of that amazing shine and sparkle. Once this is dry, especially on black, it really lights up. And this all has to do with the light. That is going to make a fun background. Okay, moving on. Let's take a look at what happens with a texture paste. So with the texture paste one, we're going to give that a light spritz, and I think we'll do a rainbow pattern. Okay, that was some squeezed lemonade. Now we've got some picked raspberry. There we go. So it looks like I need just a little bit more squeezed lemonade there. There we go. Now we've got that lovely orange. I'm just going to quickly rotate that so that I don't get too much of that blue blowing back on the lovely yellow. There we go. And then a small dash of wilted violet at the end. And we'll need to do a quick dry. Oh, and I need to dab some of this up before it spreads too far. Okay. All right, back in just a moment. Now let's go ahead and add some spritz. I love what the Crackle paste does. Every time I see it, we get such wonderful texture. And I think the spritz is just going to add something a little bit extra to this. Now, the Crackle paste that we use today is some of the translucent Crackle paste. So we've got some really interesting things going on right here. All right, let's go ahead and do a quick spritz and see how that looks. So I'm pretty much using every color of the rainbow this time, just because we can. For the orange, I've got a spiced marmalade. Okay, and now some twisted citron. Then we've got some peacock feathers. Oh, that worked out really well. And last but not least, I've got wilted violet. Okay, so I will let this dry and add in a few water droplets for some distressed texture. All right, we've got our spritz. It's all nice and dried. We've got some water splotches on here, and look at that beautiful texture that we've got going. I absolutely love that. Now, I want to do one extra step on this just because we can. I want to add a little bit of distress crayon over the top, and we're going to be doing that with some picket fence. So the plan is to smush some picket fence over the top so that we can bring out that wonderful crackle, even more than it already is. I'm just going to lightly put this down, and I'll just very carefully smudge that in. Ooh, that's working out quite well. All right. Sometimes just that little extra touch can really make a background. So that is working out very nicely. Just quickly smushing that in. Adding that on here. There we go. Ooh, that was a good addition. Cool. So I'm just quickly smushing that in, and then we'll take a closer look at that fantastic texture. Yeah, I like how that worked out. Okay, well, let's move on to our next technique. So the next thing that we're going to be working on is going to be with a stencil. So let's go ahead. I'm going to grab a stencil. Let's see here. Ooh, I see a good one. We're going to pull in stencil THS 161. That'll be a good one to work with. So what we're going to do first is make a background using some distress sprays, and then we're going to be spritzing over the top using a stencil. So let's go ahead, a bit of water, a bit of spray. That's good. Let's see. I think I want to kind of go for some blues today. That's good, I like that. And, I kind of want an oxide. Ooh, why not? Abandoned coral. That could be really interesting. Not a lot of it, but just a little. It's not a color I frequently use, but I think, ooh, yeah. That is going to be just what I'm looking for right now. Alright, I'm just going to quickly dry this, and then we'll get right on to stenciling. Here is the tag all nice and dry, and that abandoned coral really offsets this quite nicely. Alright, let's bring our stencil in. So again, this is THS 161. We're just going to put that right over the top here, and we're going to grab some of the walnut stain this time and give that a really good shake. And then we're going to spritz that right through the stencil and see what we get. Kind of tempted to maybe use some of the spiced marmalade as well, but let's see. Ooh, you know what? I think this is going to be just fine on its own. Okay. So we'll just go ahead and lift this up. Ooh, that came out really good. Now, one thing that I'm not sure of, I want to see if we can monoprint with this. This is either going to work really well or it's going to be a bit of a disaster. But only one way to find out. So we've got some of the Spritz still on here, so let's find out. Will this monoprint? So I've got that down. And just kind of smoothing that out. Let's see here. What do we get? Ooh, that's kind of interesting. I think that works. That is very interesting. So that's the monoprint. I think I might go back in later with some distress ink pads and see what I can do with this. That turned out a lot more interesting than I thought. Okay, I'm just going to set that aside and we're going to take a second look at the one we stenciled. So this dried pretty quickly and we've definitely got some shine on here. I think we'll need to give it a quick dry, then we'll see even more shine. And here is the dried tag. I love the walnut stain. It's a nice contrast on this cool tone background. And then we've got those beautiful splotches of abandoned coral coming through. That is a really good color combination. Got to remember that for the future. All right, so we've made this. And now we're going to also take a look at some embossing folders. We're going to be pulling in an embossing folder and we're going to be altering the paper with more spritz and probably some spray stains. So our substrate's going to be some of the Distress watercolor cardstock. So here's our embossing folder. This is the number blocks. That is the fun one. And this is the results with the embossing folder on the Distress watercolor cardstock. So let's go ahead. We'll give this a quick spritz and see what we can do. I really like that blue theme that we had going earlier, so I want to see what we can do with that and maybe a little bit of brown. Let's see here. Ooh, that looked good. Ooh, that I'm liking a lot. Okay. So the last thing I want to do is add some spritz. Let's see here. What colors would look really good? Oh, we haven't done peeled paint yet. That would look fantastic. And maybe a dash of the fossilized amber again. So I'm just giving this a really good shake, making sure that everything is going to be ready. All right. That'll be interesting. And let's do a dash of that fossilized amber. Ooh. Okay, so I'm going to dry this off and then we'll probably do a little bit more spritzing. All right, let's take a look at the finished results and check out all that sparkle. This is from Distress Spritz. In the background, we have the number blocks embossing folder 3D, and then we went over the top with some peacock feathers and a dash of Mermaid Lagoon and a bit of vintage photo before we added on all of that beautiful spritz. And the spritz is the fossilized amber with a dash of the walnut stain spritz as well. Okay, so let's do a quick recap of the things that we have created so far featuring spritz. The first thing that we took a look at was how spritz reacts over different medias. We started off with Distress Ink Oxide, moving on to Distress Crayon, Distress Watercolor Pencil, Distress Paint, Distress Spray Stain, and Distress Oxide Sprays. And as you can see, Wilted Violet coordinates beautifully with Wilted Violet across all of the different mediums. Very, very cool. Then we dove into some other techniques. We took a look at how spritz reacts with Crackle Paste over Texture Paste Opaque. We spray painted a beautiful gradient. We tried spritz over the black Texture Paste. We also did a bit of stenciling with spritz, and I love the results of this. So, so pretty. And we even got a mono printing out of spritz as well, which I found to be exceedingly interesting. It's got great texture. And last but not least, we worked with spritz and an embossing folder to see what would happen. So these are our basic spritz techniques.